I think my parents just got greedy and wanted to turn foster care into a profitable business or something, because they hardly did any background checks on the kids they sheltered. I remember the day Julio arrived at my house. He was small for his age, skinny but had a big head with messy hair. He also had some cuts and bruises on his face, so he'd definitely seen some bad days. He wore an oversized tattered jacket which smelled terrible. Of all the kids to come to my house, he looked the most defeated, yet strangely suspicious. I've never known what happened with Julio's parents or why he was brought into foster care, but it couldn't have been good for sure. I went to shake his hand. "Welcome, Julio. I'm Andy." He eyed me from top to bottom without blinking once, and then walked away. My dad snapped seeing his don't care attitude and screamed,
"Hey, you get back here right now! When my son speaks to you, you answer, understand?"
He was putting Julio in his place, at least from his perspective.
"You are nothing in this house compared to our son, got it?"
"Dad, I told him, leave him alone." Julio cut me off. "No, he's right. I'm sorry." Suddenly his demeanor changed, as though he knew this was precisely what he should say to keep my father quiet.
"Looks like you're a smart boy. Come, I'll show you your room."
Julio and I shared a room. My parents bought these bunk beds to save space. I slept at the top and Julio slept at the bottom. That night after dinner, I went to bed early. Julio just sat near the window, just watching the empty streets. I fell asleep, but was interrupted by a sudden sound. It was this clipping sound, not too loud, but hammering. I opened my eyes and saw a pair of eyes behind my feet. I could tell it was Julio. He was climbing up the bunk ladder just enough to reveal the top of his head. His cold eyes gave me the creeps. "Julio, do you need anything?" "I wanted to ask you a question, Andy. What do you do when you can't sleep?" I don't know. Try to divert my mind, I guess?" "We aren't that different then." He climbed up slowly and sat on my bed next to my legs. "Want to see how I divert my mind?" Julio started biting his nails. The clipping sound that his teeth made while ripping off every last bite of his fingernails made my skin crawl. He then showed me his hands. Each finger was covered with a red rash, and the skin around the nails didn't look good. They were swollen and filled with pus. "Oh my God, you must be in pain." "You don't know anything about pain. You're just a stupid boy who got lucky." He went back to his bed, terrorizing me the entire night. The more time I spent with Julio, the more I realized he wasn't a normal kid. There's a dark side in Julio which he hides from the world. One afternoon, I happened to come home early from school. I called out to my mom.
"I'm taking a shower, honey. There's pasta for you in the fridge. Have at it and give some to Julio as well."
I ran to my room, but Julio wasn't there. I figured he must be in the backyard, so I checked there next. Outside, Julio was standing on a cardboard box, staring into my mom's bathroom. There was a sick smile on his face that I'll never forget. I wanted to scream at him, but something choked me up. Maybe it was fear, or maybe it was the loss of innocence upon realizing what Julio was up to. Suddenly, he noticed me and his smile faded. An angry expression took over and he got down from the box. He walked right back into the house without any regret. It was like he was doing something important and I had ruined it all. I followed him back to my room. I wanted to punch him in the face.
"You sick freako!"
"Shh, I think your mom's coming." My mom came to our room with a fresh towel wrapped around her head, wearing a bathrobe.
"I forgot to tell you guys. Your dad and I will be going out for dinner tonight. You two better behave and stay at home."
"Sure, Mrs. Vermont. Have a good time with your husband." He had that same creepy smile from before. I felt so dirty around him. How could an 11-year-old be so distorted, so rotten? That night, my parents left and Julio got busy watching movies in the living room. That's when I took the chance. The only thing he brought with him was an old tattered suitcase. He kept it under the bed and guarded it with his life. I tiptoed back to my room, taking this perfect opportunity to go through his stuff. There were a few old t-shirts, a pair of trousers, and a small notebook. As I opened the notebook, my palms got sweaty. I found two $50 bills inside the notebook and a hospital ID. The name of the hospital was Serene Mental Institution, with a mugshot of Julio looking more evil than ever. His date of birth was April 22nd, 1990, making him at least 23 to 24 years old. And under the patient status, he was labeled as extremely violent. My throat went dry and I could barely breathe. The foster kid whom my parents brought home is a full-grown adult. He only looks like a child. I looked out to the living room. Julio was still sitting on the couch watching TV. I locked the door of my room and called my parents. They told me to sit tight and that they'd be home soon with the cops. Suddenly, the doorknob started twisting, followed by Julio's voice. Why's the door locked, Andy? This is my room too! Open the door, Andy, now! I didn't answer him at that point because I was scared to death. That's when the banging started. I said open it! Open the door, you little brat! I know the truth, Julio. The cops will be here soon! Just as I mentioned this, everything went silent. A few seconds later, Julio passed a handwritten note through the gap under the door, and I heard his footsteps running away. This is what he wrote. You know, there's a lot more like me.
I grew up